Go and we're off. Okay, so welcome everybody to LinkedIn for Breakfast. Fantastic to have you here. Super excited about sharing today's subject. It's kind of that conversation of how to use this chat GPT, how to use this AI malarkey when we think about LinkedIn. And it's important because before we started the record button, I asked a few people to just put in the chat, their thoughts around it. And a number of people made the very important kind of observation that actually it's easily spotted AI. There's potential to be seen. Sometimes it feels a little bit too AI-y. And so we're going to try and work through a little bit of that today. I'm going to throw kind of core content at you and then layer over ChatGPT, and we're then going to take lots of times for questions and also sharing because there's so much value and knowledge in this room. We're going to share our own experiences and thoughts around it. So let's just jump straight into my slides and give you a bit of a flavor for what we're doing here. So welcome again. Just before we start, I always like to let everybody know about our mission here at LinkedIn for Breakfast. We want to make this the best place on the planet for you to come for free to learn about LinkedIn and how to use it for business development. That's the lead generation stuff, the stuff that gets your phone ringing, inbox pinging, as well as brand expansion. That's the stuff that allows you to get seen and knowledge of you and awareness and really kind of raise your profile. So those are the two things we want to do. And the whole point of this is to deliver great value for you for free. So when we actually kind of approach any type of marketing or any type of funnel, what we're saying to people is that you've got to start with this mantra, this type of mindset. Because to make any marketing work, you've got to build awareness. That's the top of the funnel, awareness. What do I mean by that on LinkedIn? Is things like connecting with your right audience, actually for them to realize, okay, I know who you are and I understand that you're a coach, or I know who you are and I understand that you're a marketing agency. Great. Okay, so we're now aware of you. Then the second stage is we've got to build consideration. What do we mean by that consideration? Well, okay, well, I know that you're a marketing agency, but actually, do I like what you say about marketing? Do I even like understand your point of view on things? Do I think that you're any good? And so that's me considering your credibility. That's me considering, are you actually good at what you do? That doesn't mean that I'm considering buying you at this stage. I'm just going, okay, I think that you're pretty good at the marketing. So that's where content and long form content comes in. And when we think about consideration, we're talking about things like podcasts or events or long form newsletters or long form videos like YouTube, etc., or on LinkedIn. It's going to be more like long form videos, lives on LinkedIn. The stuff that you spend a little bit more time than the average doom scroll that we're doing in the evenings, right? It's a bit more time considered. So that's super important. You've got to transition people to go, oh, I know that you're a business coach too. Oh, I like what you said about actually growth and this specific subject, right? So there's a huge kind of transition that we've got to make. And we've got to be putting these assets out for people to stumble into regularly. Then the final thing that we've got to do in before you get to deliver for them is to convert them. So we've got to transition them then into a one-to-one type arrangement to buy from you, or we've got to transition them to some sort of checkout where they just buy straight off the bat, right? So we've got to go from them going, I consider that you're actually good at what you're talking about, to, oh, I wonder if you could help me with that. And that's the convert stage. And that's a completely different mindset for the potential opportunity. They go from learning from you to wanting you to do stuff or wanting to work with you. So awareness, consider, convert. That's the funnel that we want to do. That all can be played out on LinkedIn. Now, the bit at the bottom, just to kind of finish the diagram, is your deliver. So delight, gamify, and advocacy. Those are the three stages of actually delivering a great service to a client. You want to delight people on the way in as they buy from you, great onboarding, lots of little kind of like value adds, things they weren't expecting, get them really happy. Then you create a game for them. And the game could be things like, them winning through a dashboard, reporting back to them what they're actually doing, their success, measuring it, things like scorecards, dashboards, leaderboards, So you get them hooked on your game of business and you get them winning. And someone who's delighted and winning at your game will then tell other people and will therefore become an advocate, and they'll keep on swimming around your delivery bowl, right? We call that the advocacy bowl. So that is not what we talk about here, but it's quite nice to be able to kind of give you some of those little, hopefully, sparks of interest in there. So we want to talk about awareness, consider, convert. So when we talk about this, I'm just going to work for a really simple funnel with you. Something that we can all do and stuff that we teach at LinkedIn for Breakfast. And that's around a newsletter funnel. So if we think about your LinkedIn, you've got this awareness. Oh, hang on. I'm on 32. I like a thicker pen. Right. So awareness, consider, convert, deliver, right? So we start to think about this newsletter piece, right? So when we're finding these audiences online and we're connecting with them, we want to transition them into a newsletter. And if we can make that a weekly moment, something that you post out every single week, a focal point, that means that when we're connecting with people, we can keep on trying to push them into a LinkedIn newsletter. And the beauty of this, and what I want to show you, is how easily you can create a whole content structure to make that newsletter funnel work for you on LinkedIn. Why am I so bullshit about a newsletter, by the way? Just to show you the reason why I love it is if you go onto your LinkedIn profile, you can go down to here and actually tag in a featured post your newsletter, and it can be a one-click subscribe. And look, 2,200 people are leads within my newsletter. So this is 2,200 people who have come onto my LinkedIn profile and have subscribed to my LinkedIn newsletter. There's a whole training on this that, Flora, if we can make sure we loop that training around to people with the replay of this afterwards, that will help as well. But look, I can see my newsletter subscribers on LinkedIn. I can click this button, bam, they're here. The most recent newsletter subscribers go at the top, and obviously the rest of them go at the bottom, and it will load them up, which gives me a great opportunity to press connect with them, to message them and say, hey, how are things, right? To nudge them to say hi, right? I can say, hey, thanks for subscribing to your newsletter. How's things in this crazy world? It gives me the opportunity to generate the conversation, right? So I love that, because as we connect with people, we build our subscribers in this weekly moment newsletter. We then can DM these people because we know who they are. They've made the first move, and say, hey, would you like to grab a virtual coffee? And move them into that convert stage. So they're considering you here. They're reading your newsletters. They can stay in here until they're ready. You can message them, invite them into this virtual coffee. And then once you do that, you can then have a sales conversation with them and hopefully get them, right? So that's the reason why I like this funnel. Now, when it comes on to AI, I'm a big believer of trying to use these online tools to not only save you time, but to build a whole process that removes you completely from the need to do this stuff, right? And that process we're going to build out today. Because if you go, this is my weekly moment. I'm going to produce these bits of article, these bits of content. I'm going to be posting them out. The reason why, again, I love LinkedIn newsletters is that those 2,000 people get an email from LinkedIn with my newsletter when it gets sent, which means it's probably going to get through the spam filters, because if I email it from my email address, I'll get about a 30% delivery rate or whatever it is, or 30% open rate. With a LinkedIn email, it's more likely to get more people opening it. So it's highly likely to get delivered, and therefore you'll get responses and comments on it. So if we know this is the case, oh, hello. Then we can go and set up, Jesus, too many things sliding around the place. We can set up a bit of a content calendar. And so we can think about, well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what are we going to be posting? And if we can think about it in a strategic way, we recommend to clients that they should have 13 different topics that they cycle. Why do we think of 13 topics? Well, 52 weeks divided by 4 quarters equals 13, right? So 13 times by 4 quarters equals 52 weeks, i.e., there's 13 themes in a quarter, and you do the same 13 themes every quarter. So you're doing the same 13 topics every four times a year, right? So that's why we do it. Now, if we know that's the case, then we can go, well, actually, what is our business? What does our audience actually care about? And what should those topics be? And so our first trip over to ChatGPT begins, right? And so we jump into there and go, okay, for my audience, and by the way, I will just spell badly on this because it doesn't matter because ChatGPT understands me. Finally, someone who understands my spelling, right? So for my audience who are business coaches, what are the core um, core marketing topics they care about, right? So what am I doing here, right? I am basically saying for my audience who are this, what are the specific marketing topics that relate to my niche marketing? You know, what are the core, and yours could be legal topics, accounting topics, whatever it is, whatever you are, business growth topics that they care about, right? And I'm going to say, give me 30. Right, bam. So now I'm asking it to kind of help me with these topics. Now, I may already have a good feel for what I'd like to talk about, but it's now giving me a number of different topics. So client acquisition strategies, personal branding, content marketing, lead generation, nurturing, social media marketing, bada bing, right? So now we've got our 13 topics. Awesome. And of course, I can query it a few times. I can add a few more in. I can get a flavor until I get my perfect 13 that I'm happy talking about. Great, I've now got my 13 topics. And then I go, cool. If I know this, then that means that every week's now got a theme. Okay. And so, oh, geez, too many buttons, hey? Sorry about this, guys. It's even more confusing for me when I'm trying to drive this thing. So please give me a little bit of grace. Okay. So where have I put that? Okay. So 13 weeks. So if we now know that each week's got a theme, awesome. So we're going to call this theme personal branding because that was one of the ones it came up with. And so I can now think, right, I've got my 13 themes. I'm going to be talking around that. So if I want to land my newsletter on a Wednesday, so say I'm going to do that at the middle of the week, that means I can actually then start to put together different types of content that will really help me on other days. So we think about if I'm going to do a newsletter on Wednesday about that personal branding, well, let's start to use ChatGPT to be able to create that newsletter. Okay, so I can just jump onto there. And this is where you can kind of start to use this and go, great. Okay, so for this theme, I need a newsletter. And this is where you want to get, and I'll probably say like, you know, but not too long, not too long. And I'll talk about the theme. Now, this is when you're writing a prompt like this, don't just go write me a newsletter on personal branding. Everybody knows that bland AI stuff is like blah, right? And yes, you can do a load of clever stuff like teaching your GPT to do to learn more about you, the way that you speak, etc. But I'm just going to go really basic because we just want to focus on this. And all the rest of that kind of clever priming your chat GPT stuff, I'm sure you can find a YouTube channel on, or just you don't need to necessarily always do it. But this is what I do and say, I'll say, can I create a newsletter on this? But tell the story of how so you can then start to think about a story about yourself that you needed to do. So I'm just trying to think about, tell a story of how I had to use my personal brand when coming out of a TV show and needing TV show badly, I'm going to say badly, and needing to understand what I was all about, and you can kind of start to add in some different pieces, right? So coming out of a personal brand, you can say, what I was all about. I struggled with changing the narrative that was given to me. to me. And I might just put in what it was. All I'm giving you is like what we're trying to do here is put life experiences in to this prompt just so it creates something that's really interesting, right? So how I use my personal one is coming out of a TV show, and I'm just going to put BBC The Apprentice in 2015. Let's just see where it goes to. I'm sure this isn't going to be so great, but it's going to then give a bit of a flavor of a personal piece into this article. And then hopefully, yeah, here we go. Great. So 2005, I found myself in a new position, a fresh back of a national TV show, The Apprentice. And I haven't given it much. To be honest with you, I don't even know what I gave it there. And here we go. What do I truly stand for? And the beauty of this, right? So because I start with this kind of interesting personal story, nobody's going to think that this is an AI generated article, are they? And I'm going to be able to dust a little bit more. I'm going to edit it. But that took me 2 seconds. To be honest with you, I wasn't really thinking quickly because I've got a million things going popping around on this, on doing this live with you guys, right? But it gives a really nice bit of content in here that I can then go, oh, actually, can you do something else and all the rest of it? And then I can put a photo of the apprentice in. That's a really quick article. Took me 2 seconds. So now I've got my article, but I want to make sure that this week becomes the best week ever. So now I want to line up the rest of my content. So on Monday, because we're doing a theme, what we do is an engagement creator. So what we mean by that is you want to create a poll to spike the algorithm so you get more people interested in the conversation around personal branding. So I could go to ChatGPT and say, can you now create a poll question about how important personal branding is, right? Bam. Personal branding is. Here we go. So now it's giving me a poll. So how important is personal branding in your business as a coach, right? Bam. And it's given me 5 nice questions there. Great. So I'm now going to post that on Monday. So that's great. And the beauty of this, gang, is not only am I going to post this on Monday, I'm also going to then, once I get the interactions go on Monday, I can DM all of these lovely people, connect with them, and then say, hey, you should subscribe to my newsletter because on Wednesday I'm going to be talking about my experiences on The Apprentice. And now I'm getting subscribers. And then what happens when I get subscribers is I'm going to then DM them, I'm going to connect with them, and I'm going to invite them to the virtual coffee, and then I'm hopefully going to have sales meetings, right? So I'm using this to be able to grow my newsletter, which then triggers a set of lead generation activity. So I'm creating my own market and I'm also creating appetite. So then on Tuesday, we talk about Promo Tuesday, right? So what do we do on Promo Tuesday? It's a short post promoting the fact that you're going to drop an article the next day. So I go back to ChatGPT and I go, can you create a short post with 3 bullets that's promoting the above newsletter, which I will launch on Wednesday. Great. And then it's going to give me this. There you go. New newsletter dropping this Wednesday. Bam. Hashtags are in there. Don't miss subscribe. Perfect. So now I've got that post. Lovely, right? And then I do my post on Wednesday. And then Thursday, you could do what we call a throwback Thursday. So we can go and throw back another piece of content about personal branding and then repost that. So now that's also helping again. You're putting a call to action on that. You're throwing back Thursday. And then the final thing we do is share a win Friday, where you can share a piece of credibility where you've done a personal branding project for a client. So if this is personal branding week, then you can share a case study of how you've helped a client with personal branding. If it's Facebook ads week, if you're a marketing agency, you could say this is a personal story of how, and if you haven't done it for a client, you could talk about a story about yourself or about a client where they've had a story around it, or someone that you've seen that's high profile in the media and how they've really grown on it. So this is share a win, and you could again use ChatGPT to be able to upload this. So the whole point of this, we've now put together a whole plan. Now, the beauty of this plan, gang, is if you get this going properly and you get the themes right, then you can actually have the Monday engagement creator. You can just have the same 13 polls that you use. Because if you get those same 13 polls, they're always going to be personal branding polls. And nobody's going to see the same poll that gets used, 3 months ago, 13 weeks away. I mean, nobody can even remember what they own, but they posted themselves 2 weeks ago, let alone what you posted 14 weeks ago. So you lock in those same 13 polls and you rinse and repeat again after those 13. So that's locked in. Then you can do the same throwback Thursdays, right? So you think about personal branding posts. Once you've got some nice posts that you've created, you can have the same 13 throwback Thursdays all locked in for Thursday. Once you've got 13 case studies, you can have those same case studies that you loop because they are your personal branding case study that you're going to rinse and repeat on a Friday, right? So we've now locked in for your themes, each one, your Monday sorted, your Thursday sorted, your Friday sorted. So then all you need to do is create a newsletter each week. So it's one post a week, and then ask ChatGPT to create a promotional post for that newsletter. And so now you have a daily content rhythm where you are only doing one newsletter a week. And how you can then start to manage this is delegate the whole piece to your VA. And this is a good idea of how we kind of work in our business. This is our 13-week cycle, and we use a Trello board to manage it. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then weeks 1 to 13 down the side. And each one of these cards is a post. So this is Monday's engagement creator, right? So this is our Monday post where this is the post text. This is the hashtags to use. This is the question, yes, no. This is the first comment that we post. All of this is AI generated for us, right? This is our reply to voters when we DM people. It's all sorted. And there's 13. And we just loop back round, loop back round, loop back round. So once we've got this, bam, then you've now got a beautiful machine that is your content machine. And you can then roll it out and put a VA in charge of it. And then bam, you've got someone posting the content, and all you need to worry about is actually your Wednesday post. And you just create a lovely article. You give yourself a bit of time to make it more bespoke. You dust a little bit of your personality over it, throw a few photos in it, and suddenly you've got a fantastic weekly moment. And it doesn't have to just work as a newsletter, by the way. It's good to show on ChatGPT how easy it is to do the newsletter funnel, but you could do an event like this and roll that out and have the rest of this working for you. You could have a podcast and roll it out and have the rest of this working for you. So the whole point of this demonstration is to break down the barrier of going, oh, what do I post this week? It's going who your audience is, what the topic should be, what the content should be, using AI to be able to help you with the rhythm of that, delegating that to someone to post for you, and then suddenly you've now got a full-on content machine. Super, super, super important. Now, at this point, I've got a couple of questions in the chat here. So could anybody who's got a question just ask it now, and I can then come back to you on this because there's a few different ideas there that I want to throw around. And there's so much of a subject that we can go deep on this. So if you had a question in the chat, could you just ask it on the actual call? Where are you guys? Okay, Karen, go for it.
Richard, I love you, but you're in my inbox a bit too much at the moment. So I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. So when I look at the strategy that you've just described, I think, yes, that's awesome for making people aware of you and what you can do. But as a receiver of it, I'm feeling overwhelmed.
So there's a big difference between an inbox and a LinkedIn profile, right? So are you saying your email inbox or are you talking about the LinkedIn?
I'm saying my email inbox.
Yeah. Yeah. So email inboxes are essentially, a tool where you're communicating with your database, right? And so we've got a mantra of what's the point in having your audience gather digital dust sitting in a big data set? You want to work people through the funnel. And the people that will enjoy the content will come along to it and enjoy it. And if they're not interested in anything further from that, that's fine. And then people might unsubscribe down the line. And I do understand that sometimes, people will just turn it off, unsubscribe, it's too many emails. But there's a big transition from getting people to events and giving value and keep on helping people, and then not upsetting everybody because everybody's gonna be upset. But if I think about your journey, Karen, obviously you've come onto the call, been in the community, and also jumped into a LinkedIn profile audit. So you've had the maximum amount of kind of value from us. So you probably are at that in heightened state. And I think this is an important point to make. And I do like this. I do like to make this, honestly with people. So I hope you don't mind, Karen. So when you're thinking about your audience, um, there is a window. There's a window when people come into your world, right? And we should all be aware of this. So as you build this kind of awareness, so awareness, consider, convert, deliver, right? As you build this awareness, people will just be growing, they'll be connecting with you, they don't really know who you are. But when they transition into consider, you then have a way of keeping them in a consideration mode, but the next call to action then is to move them into some sort of one-to-one call, and have a conversation with them. And so the game is then get as many people in this one-to-one conversation, and at that point, they might make a decision to then, buy your product or not, right? Because that's the whole point of this. And we tell our clients, you want to make this consideration piece, make it the best stuff that you can do for free, blow people's minds with this. We have this kind of, everybody talks about some sort of clever ascending transaction model type thing where you go like a free product, like a £97 product, a £297 product, a £1,000 product. Like I'm exhausted even writing it, right? And imagine having to deliver all that. And what happens is people go to your free and then they buy your cheap thing, and then they buy cheap thing. And before you know it, they spin off and they buy someone else's like big 10K product. And you're like, well, I had like a 10K thing or 5K thing or whatever it is that you got like your flagship product here. But they're like, well, you had a chance and I gave you another chance and you didn't solve my pain. So I'm off, and they buy someone else's. And we just think that's crap. And we just think that's the wrong way of doing this. So if you're on this call, stop trying to sell people multiple solutions. Sell them the one solution, right? So you want to take someone from free, blow their minds with free, and give them the world's best stuff. Don't hold back. Just give them everything because you want to grow a great audience that want to recommend you. And then to F, flagship, right? For free to flagship. Give the solution, not a variety of bronze, silver, golds. Give them the solution to the pain, right? If you get Synonymous to be able to say, this is the result that we can help you, this is where you are now, and the journey to be able to get here is these steps. Don't make me buy step one and then I have to buy step two, step three. Just sell me the whole bloody journey and tell me it's going to be 3K and I'm going to be able to help you to be able to get to this promised land. And I empathize with where you are now, and I'm going to show you the journey that you've got to go on. And the only thing you need to consider is actually time and money. Do you think the time that I'm saying to go through these steps is good enough? And do you think that the investment that I'm trying to tell you is right? Okay. And so to kind of go full circle, when you get the opportunity to demonstrate your remarkable solution to someone, that's the most important thing because you try and create the best free thing and then you create the best way of solving their problem. And when someone transitions into a one-to-one to have a chat with you and you show them that flagship product and that's it, then that's kind of journey there. Then it's up to them if they go, oh no, that's not quite for me, it's not quite the right time, and they go spinning back and then they just stay in your free stuff. That's cool. That's no worries at all. But That's then community, that's audience, that's people that are waiting maybe for a better time further down the line. That's great. And that's why you have a massive, clever delivery model of just giving great stuff, because you can keep people in here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then suddenly on year three, it becomes the right time and they sell. But in that time, you're constantly not trying to go, oh, here's another thing that I can sell you, here's another thing to sell you. You're just making this the best. The growth of your flagship should look like this. It should start off with trying to get as many of the core things in as possible. And then you're just adding more value, adding more value, adding more value. But the kind of price and everything, the hopper remains the same. The value just gets bigger. That's my mantra. $1 Million Sprint has got so many more assets. We started as just an online program. Now we do quarterly in-person events. We've got a retreat as part of it. We give people a VA to actually do the work for people. None of that was part of the program when we first started, but yet the price remains the same, right? So we're just doing more and more and more and more and more for people. From here, we're just growing it and growing it and growing it. And I feel like that's an important point for all of us to think about is, do I really have a full and remarkable solution that I'm so excited about telling people about? And so that's where the blow the people's minds with free and then deliver the flagship product. So I know that's a kind of a roundabout way of talking about that, but that's why I feel like the over communication piece is okay, because once people get through to that cycle, and if they have a one-to-one with you and it's not the right time with them, then that's kind of then sorted and they loop back round, they might unsubscribe. But your job is to communicate, value until they eventually make a decision if they're going to work with you or not. And by knowing that is great. By not knowing that, you just keep on communicating, getting people along to it. That's my mantra anyway. That's the way that we've grown businesses in the past, and so hopefully that gives you a flavor for it. In some way, Karen. So just coming back into the room, I'm going to answer Dawn's question in a second. And just conscious that I've got a couple of LinkedIn profile audits left, and I just wanted to show you this to you guys. So and many of you have had these LinkedIn profile audits, and hopefully they've been of great value. What I basically do is review your profile with you live and look at how you can improve that profile. We'll talk about things like the newsletter. We'll talk about the stuff that we do. I don't have many of these, and unfortunately, there's only 3 I saw today, one on the 30th and 2 on the 31st. So I'm really sorry about this, guys, that the diary's there, but it's half term, and so I'm away for half term. I'm also away seeing a school Thursday, Friday for my son this week. So I'm going to put that in the chat. So there's 3. So as soon as I press this button, if you want me to sit there with you for 45 minutes to go through your headline, your banner, your maximize recommendations, lead generation, it's going into the chat now. So click on that and grab it. If you miss out, because the last couple of times it's always gone, please just put waiting list in the chat. So if you've missed the opportunity on this one and it goes, please just put waiting list in the chat. And or if you can't make one of those 2 dates, and Flora from my team will ask you to, we'll try and squeeze you into some other dates. We'll give you the first access when we release more dates for that LinkedIn profile audit. So do jump on that. Right, gang. No, a lot of detail here today. Dawn, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. I think my brain has finally clicked on how we're going to do this. And by the way, everybody, I had a LinkedIn profile audit with Richard. There wasn't much for him to do, but what he did do was absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't had one yet, then make sure you get, and I'm not on commission. I say what I think. And if it was rubbish, I'd have told you, but it wasn't. So my thinking, and I want to clarify this with you before we dive into it. As you know, I've been like, how does this work? How does a $6 million sprint work in my business with someone who is a writing machine, who creates their own content? What I'm thinking now is, instead of us doing the $1 million sprint to my flagpole, not my flagship, my flagpole on my flagship. And I'm a sailor, so that's a very different distinction. I get people to sign up to my 7-week author course, which is my mid-range product, because not everybody can afford to work with me at 35 grand. But that my 7-week author course is, if they do it as a self-study course, it's only, and I know this is like the stepping stone, which, you know, I know you don't like, but that if they do it as a self-study, it's only about £1,100. But if they do it with me on a quarterly basis, it's only 5 grand. But they get me in there, you know, 21 books later. They get, so this ChatGPT and this system that you're doing, we get my VA with you to use the ChatGPT to mimic and train the way I write and the way I speak. They use ChatGPT to then create all of that content, and I can just get on with writing my books.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not tough.
I told you I'd get there.
Hey.
I told you I'd get.
It's not tough because it's things like poll questions are not exactly, you know, stuff that need total character in there. It's nice to have them a little bit less dull because you see a lot of dull polls, but something that's a little bit fun, you know, like a bit of humor in the polls. And the whole point of the polls is just to talk about the subject, but just make people, you know, vote. So then it's not difficult to get these right. And of course, you're signing it off, and it's only 13 poll questions to sign off. And then that's like your whole annual Monday done.
Okay. Because I spoke to someone who's been doing your $1 million sprint a couple of days ago. Very, very high praise, Mr. Woods. Very high praise.
Nice.
So I've been really bending my brain on how we make this happen. So yeah, very excited to talk to you. But I think that that's where I can see it in my business and how it's working. So I did ask you whether this would be that cool.
It could be that cool.
It could be that cool.
I think the important thing, and remember, guys, the whole point of the premise of this call is not a sales pitch. So I'm not trying to. There's nothing to sell. But everything we talked about is free to jump on. The LinkedIn profile audits are all free.
We're always selling, Richard. We're always selling.
Yeah, well, I don't want it to feel like that. So, but that's very kind.
Oh, it hasn't. It hasn't.
I do appreciate that, and there's some lovely people jumping on the waiting list there for the audit. Look, guys, I'm happy to stick around and take some further questions. I don't mind going a little bit off track. I feel like we kind of went a little bit away from ChatGPT, but I'm happy to come back to it or just ask some more kind of LinkedIn-y questions. Just throw some ideas and questions around. And thank you, by the way, Dawn, for your very kind words there. I do appreciate it. And whoever spoke to you, well, I'll have to slip them.
Like I said, I'm honest.
Thank you. Tony, over to you, mate. You're muted.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, all very good. Question I've got is, as you know, I'm building up the contacts. That's going extremely well. I'm really pleased. But when is the right time to do a survey? And the reason I say that is my concern would be putting a survey out there. Great that we can use ChatGPT, you know, to assist us. But my worry would be that if I don't get many people actually responding, that I'd feel that that might be going against me. In other words, that other people might think, oh, he's got all these contacts, and yet he's only had 9-10 people interested in that survey.
So when you're saying survey, do you mean like the poll? The question that I showed on, okay, fine. Because a survey for me is like a client survey that you'll use like a form and go around to your customers, and that's not on LinkedIn. But a poll, yeah, I think that's okay. Like you got to remember that on any given day, your post when you post it has like an hour's life for actual reach, and then after that it will peter out. So when you get that reach, whoever happens to be on LinkedIn in that given day within that 1 hour will get pushed that poll, and if they respond to it and engage with it, then LinkedIn might give it more legs, and you might last more than an hour and might go longer and get through more of a data. So by that definition, also a load of people aren't going to see the poll, and so it's not going to really create any kind of lack of street cred, if you like, on LinkedIn. So what I would suggest with your poll is to not make it detailed. The best polls that do so well are just simple yes, no polls. They are questions. So, for example, for you, I wouldn't necessarily say, which one of the seven new, regulations that the Labour government's brought in that's going to affect property owners, do you least like, and then list the seven, and we've got to vote on it because it's a lot of work for us to kind of think about. But instead, I'd say, do you think that Labour's approach to legislation for landlords is good, bad, about the same? And that's it. Now, why is that important? Is that one, it's quite a contentious issue. It's kind of politically, and it will spark conversation. And you can say in the question, yeah, do give us any specifics in the chat. And now not only are people answering the poll, but they're also then commenting in the chat. And of course, when they comment in the chat, that's interesting and it's great for you, because why would anybody bother to answer that question if they're not actually a landlord that is interested in those legislations? Nobody would do. So you are basically creating a honeypot for the landlords to come to, interact with it. And so you're kind of using that magnet. If you kind of see, they are needles within the haystack of LinkedIn, and you bring a magnet to the haystack, then suddenly actually you're drawing them out. That's what a poll does. It hooks them into just answering the question. It's a little tripwire. And we call it like, so when we use a poll, because also, Tony, not only, here you go. I knew you'd make me get on my blackboard. Good stuff. Okay. I can't seem to do anything without a blackboard. But the point being is the power of a poll is so underutilized, guys, because you put the poll out on your feed, right? A quick, simple yes, no, maybe type thing, right? You're getting votes. And as we say, it's a question that only landlords would vote on. Great. So now we get 30 people who are landlords, which we can then connect and DM with and start conversations. You may even get landlords that you'd spoken to 5 years ago, completely forgot they existed, and bam, you're now interacting with them. You can have a chat with them, right? But you take that exact same poll and you go put it on 10 different target groups, so different groups on LinkedIn to do with landlords, and you ask the same question. And this is what we call a Trojan horse, right? So the whole point is, with these groups, you are offering this Trojan horse of a question because it's not threatening. You're not trying to sell anything. You're not like, hey, come along to my event, or do you want to buy my stuff? You're just putting a poll in because you're genuinely interested in this group of, say, 300 landlords on LinkedIn, what their opinion is on this latest labor legislation, or whatever it is, right? And so now you're going to get another, say, 20 engagements on that one, but you might also get 10 on this one. You might get 30 on this one. You might get 25 on this one. Suddenly now you've got 100 odd people that are engaging on the same poll, and all you've done is just copy and pasted the text, not shared it, but posted it as a new post within all of these groups. And so you're duplicating out this content and you're gaining all of these interactions. And of course, then you're sliding into the DMs and saying, hey, thanks for your vote. Thought I'd connect with you. Interesting, isn't it? This is my opinion. And you could tie this in with the newsletter and say, hey, thanks for your vote on this. This is my opinion in this newsletter that I wrote about, the 7 mistakes Labour are making in terms of, or the 7 successes, or whatever it is, whichever bias, it doesn't really matter, you're making, or Labour are making when it comes to buy-to-let landlords. Bam. So not only have we now connected with them and we've DM'd them, but we've now brought them into consideration stage where you're bringing your thought leadership to them. Hopefully they reply and go, Tony, it's a really good thought, actually. I hadn't thought about that. Oh, cool. Well, look, maybe we have a virtual coffee and have a little chat about some of these ideas. There might be something to help you with. And bada bing. Now, here's the cool thing about this, Tony. This post can be done by your VA. This sharing can be done by your VA. This first DM can be done by your VA. This connection request can be done by your VA, right? The newsletter itself can be mostly written, 90% written by your VA, and you dust your knowledge over the top of it, job done. And so you can see how you can get all the way through to this with also, a Calendly invite, and then suddenly all you're seeing is virtual coffees diving into your inbox. So if you get it right, and it's never going to be perfect to start off with, and some of these conversations might need your attention, and not everybody's going to reply, and boom, boom, boom. But this is only a Monday. This is just like 20 minutes happening on your Monday, half an hour of VA time, maybe an hour if they're doing all these conversations of a VA's time on any given Monday. And then on Tuesday, we're going to do a different process. On Wednesday, we're actually dropping the newsletter. So it's a different process. So you can see how if you really kind of start to be consistent and try these things, one poll is going to get like 2 votes. Fine. We probably don't share those in those groups, right? It was just a bad poll. Fine. Didn't work this week. But last week we got 100 votes. Wow. Okay, cool. So we're trying it. And now what happens is we put the 100 vote thing into our 13-week Trello board. There's a lot of things I know, but it's just my brain sketches like this. But we put the 100 vote thing that stays in your 13-week Trello board, but the one that only got 2 votes, you kill that, and we try something different next quarter.
Yeah, a follow-on question, if I can. Actually, that's really good. Thank you for that. Is there a best time to post these polls / your posts? Would you say, Richard?
So, well, yes. I mean, there's different things, right? So, on a Monday, because you're part of $1 Million Sprint, on a Monday we run a pod for the polls on a Monday, and that happens at 8:30 till 9. I think it's for. Is it 8:30 till 9:30? What time's the pod on Monday?
8:30 to 9:30.
Perfect. I mean, I should know, but thank you. So thank you. So that's when all the polls are posted. So your VA can go in and post it in there, and then you'll get the interaction to start off with. So we use that as a pod to spike the interaction to start off with, and then so you'll always get 30, 40 votes just using our poll on Monday. So that's 9:30 is when you should post your poll. And then on Tuesday, we got a pod within LinkedIn for Breakfast, which again can be used for your promo post. And that's at 12 o'clock. That's at lunchtime that we do in this LinkedIn for Breakfast. So there's 2 pods because you're part of both groups you could use. But then you've got to think about, well, actually, what time would be good for someone to read the newsletter if you're doing that on a Wednesday, or to do your event on a Wednesday. So for me, my Wednesday post is obviously 9 o'clock on a Wednesday, because here we are. But if you want to do a lunch and learn for an event, you do that. Or if you want to do a newsletter for your weekly moment, you might post that at lunch. If you do a podcast, you might want to get that early, so get people who are going to do the commute. So it's just working about what is the format, what type of content is it, what audience is it, and when's the best time for them to consume it.
Understood. I've got to go. I've got an
appointment,
but no, I've taken a bit of your time and everyone.
No, it's a pleasure. Well, looking forward to seeing you on some of the $1 Million Sprint track sessions as well. So yeah, good stuff. Cheers. Okay, so we'll get over to Christina. Thank you for your question. Please do answer it. And if people are shooting off, great to see you guys. We're going to stick around and answer these. We're going to finish with Mark's question, but we're going to go to Christina now. Go for it.
Apologies for the noise. We're having some work done in the house, but I've got 2 questions. So, earlier where you asked GPT to write or to give you the 13 topics for, coaches in terms of marketing. But what if your audience is different type of industry? So, in terms of, I work with coaches, I work with charities, basically small businesses of different industry sector. So how many
well, I would just say, give us 13 topics that business owners of small businesses would be interested, so you could go that broad. But again, the riches are in the niches, as the Americans like to say. So do understand that the more that you niche, the more you're going to be speaking to your target audience. And so your content could be good. And Amanda Watts, my good buddy, she has a saying that you kind of niche your marketing, not your business. So your output of marketing can be niched, but your business, you can still take opportunities that come to you, through word of mouth, no problem at all. But your front end can be very much more niched. But I help entrepreneurs, right? So it's not like I'm in a similar boat to you. My headline says helping entrepreneurs sprint to $1 million revenue. So although we we have a rhythm. Service sector entrepreneurs tend to be who we work with, and we're quite heavily marketing agency coaches, consultants based. Doesn't mean that I still struggle with that, but that's so we do entrepreneurial content, right?
Thank you. And the other question is, what is the difference between a LinkedIn newsletter versus a post, a normal post?
Really good question. So a LinkedIn newsletter, and when Flora's going to send you this training afterwards as well, but a newsletter has to be an article. Why is an article good? Is because article is actually indexed by the Google search engine, so it can be found on Google's search terms. So that's cool. A post can't, because it's inside the walled garden of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn actually allow two things to be seen by the search spiders from Google: is your profile, because your profile will come up, and also your articles. So those are key for being found outside of LinkedIn. Plus, you can only send articles via your newsletter. So a newsletter will only send an article, it won't send a post. Cool, no drama. There's a few other things, like it's in a different section, it's laid out differently, but those are the key ones. Cool, thank you. And fast and last but not least, Mark. How you doing, bud?
Being fast is a problem of mine, but hey, that's another story. Right, brilliant system, love it. I'm also wanting to do webinars via LinkedIn, and I'm just wondering how to combine the two. So it's not I know it's the same system, slightly different approach, but I'm just wondering how those two things can combine.
Do you want to do a weekly webinar and a weekly newsletter, or would you?
Well, I was going to do a weekly webinar, but actually the build up might be the newsletter to start with, to then build enough traffic to get to the webinar.
Yeah. So one of the things our clients do, so some people like to do a fortnightly event, and so we alternate. So you do event, newsletter, event, newsletter, event, newsletter. So that's how the Wednesday kind of would work. And it doesn't always have to be Wednesday, by the way, gang. It can also, you just switch the way that you're putting the themes together. So if it's a Thursday, you just move everything one way to the left or to the right or whatever. You just chop it around, right? So that could be a way of formatting. And to be honest with you, if you do it on different days, we still think a poll's good to start the week with a bang and engagement. You just kind of mix up different bits. So that's kind of some of the work that I do with clients, just to make sure they've got the perfect rhythm. We love a webinar. LinkedIn Lives are great. You can create a LinkedIn Live. You can invite people to LinkedIn Live. LinkedIn allows you to do 1,000-person invite feature for free on its platform. That's really cool. So you use that to invite people to the event. You can use emails to invite people to that. You go live through something like a Restream or a StreamYard into it. You can do audio events as opposed to actual webinars. There's loads. It's just something like that is a consideration asset. A webinar is a consideration asset. And so really know that that's your kind of key piece, and your rest of your week is building to get people along to it. You can use the tactic of a newsletter that coincides it. So this is my weekly moment, but I still have a newsletter. Our newsletter goes out every Sunday. And we just do it, and it's very much just promotes kind of YouTube videos that we work on. They're not big, they're just kind of, hey, here's another tip, here's another tip, and we just schedule them out and they go on Sunday. And Fago from my team, who's on here, he's give us a wave, Fago, there you go. So he handles that for me, and he schedules all of the stuff out every Sunday for me, and we've got a trail of newsletters that are weeks in the future. And every time we do a video, he just creates a newsletter and bam. So for me, it's a secondary thing, that newsletter tactic. And so we just pick Sundays, because it's sometimes people on Sunday's not a bad time for LinkedIn content, guys. Don't rule out a Sunday. We see some good engagement on longer form content. Videos, newsletters are quite nice for Sundays, particularly if you've got a moment in the week like I do, which is an event. Does that help, Mark?
Yeah, thank you.
Wicked. Well, guys, look at that. Well, it gives me 2 minutes to have a break before I go see all my $1 million sprinters on our track session at 10 o'clock. Well, 1 minute now. So look, I've really enjoyed that, guys. I know there's a lot of detail. Hopefully you can kind of see what the value we bring here. Thank you for everybody joining the waiting list. We've made a note of it all, and we look forward to seeing you on one of those sessions, or of course, seeing you in the future on LinkedIn for Breakfast. Big love. Take care. See you on the flip side.